So developers are really crucial. So you could think you have the best service in the world or the best API in the world. If there are no developers adopting those APIs, you will not be on the market, and hence you will not create value. So developers are crucial. And maybe in very, very simple terms, so this is really the API value chain, and I'm sure this is nothing new and it's pretty straightforward, but just to recap, on the left-hand side we have an API provider, an operator or any API provider. Then we have a developer who eventually adopts those APIs, develops a service, an app or a website, brings it to the market, and then we have consumers who consume those applications. And then at the end of the day, value is created for everyone in that chain. And that value, by the way, doesn't necessarily have to be monetary value, of course. It can be all sorts of other things, which has been discussed already. Now, obviously, if the developer is missing, there will be no service, there will be no app, there will be no consumer who can use that app, and then there's also no value created at the end of the day. So it's very straightforward, and my message here is developers are crucial, and if you would like to have your API program successful, you need to take care of developers and you need to understand the needs and requirements of developers. So what's very interesting in terms of developers is this notion of developer experience. And I would really recommend the works of a lady called Amanda Fox. She worked for Google, and then she developed a very comprehensive guideline for developer experience. It's actually a handbook. It's free on the web. You can find it there. So this notion of developer experience has two underlying principles. The first one is value. So you need to provide developers something which is of value to them. Pretty straightforward. First one is value. Second one is simplicity. So even though you have something which is very, very valuable, if it's very complicated to use and adopt, developers at the end of the day will give up and not use it. So these two principles are core in this work of developer experience. There are a lot more which derive from that, but just to keep it short and simple, these two are critical. Now, what's interesting, and Stefan mentioned that, we did, as part of the GSMA, we did a developer survey. It was a global survey with over 700 participants. And we have, by the way, this white paper is published, so you can download that, and I will show you a link later. But the most interesting outcome of that survey really is that there is apparently a gap. Developers, on the one hand, so on the one hand, here we are, they say that telco APIs and telco services, they perceive them as very valuable. So 81% say it's very valuable. But on the other hand, only 33% actually use those services and adopt them. So clearly there's a value in between. There's a gap in between. And in order to close that gap, we would like to focus on these two principles, value and simplicity. In order to dig a little bit deeper, so we got a lot of feedback in terms of, yes, we appreciate payment, yes, we appreciate mobile identity, we appreciate messaging. But probably the most interesting feedback we got is this cross-operator collaboration. Developers are more focused and more keen on reach than they are on revenue. And this is also nicely backed up by a recent survey or study by Vision Mobile. By the way, this is really great work what these guys are producing. They produced the developer economics, and the most recent one was published in Q1 2014, so very recently, with over 6,000 developers. And the outcome is that, so this is a list of reasons why developers adopt technologies. And the top reason is the ability to reach users, as many as possible. So that's 57% of all developers say that's important for them. And then you can go down the list, and interestingly, speed and cost of development is one criterion, performance, documentation, interestingly. And then only fifth is to generate revenue. So that's very interesting and certainly worth to keep in mind. So that's the first one. In order to close this gap, which I mentioned earlier, value needs to be produced. Some value is already given, and a lot of assets are perceived as valuable. But one which is still not really addressed properly is this cross-operator collaboration. And the One API Exchange is one initiative which could help to close that gap. And then secondly, and then with that I'm almost at the end of my presentation, simplicity. So although we provide all this value, cross-operator APIs and messaging and payment, it still needs to be very simple for developers to adopt. And we got a lot of feedback as part of that survey, a lot of qualitative feedback. And this is one of the most interesting ones, which is very a good example for the rest of it, where a developer told us they don't like the fact that they have to sign up for complicated agreements. So the barrier to entry should be as low as possible. You should be able to, as a developer, use the stuff as simple as possible. You know, download the SDK, just go and hack without any agreements. Test facilities should be available, example libraries, and basically this here is probably the most important statement here. Allow anyone to work with your APIs, and then they will also do so. So developers will eventually adopt it.